There's a moment every entrepreneur hits. You're working harder than you ever have. The calendar is packed, but the inbox feels endless. That to-do list never gets shorter, and somehow the business still isn't growing the way that it should be. But the problem isn't effort. The problem is leverage. Welcome to the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, John Davidson, and every week I'm sitting down with founders and top performers who have found that lever. The hire, the system, that mindset shift that changed everything. This show is for the business owner who's ready to stop being the bottleneck and start being the architect. Let's get into it. All right, welcome to another episode of the Leverage Podcast. I am your host, John Davidson, and today we are going behind the scenes of the real estate industry. We're talking with Corey Lancaster, and he's got great experience building his brokerage. We talk all about the importance of consistency, how to build systems that really enable your business to scale, how to adapt to change, and even some insights on selling your brokerage. Corey, welcome to the show today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me. Appreciate being here.
It's my pleasure. Well, one thing that we have in common, we might have a lot of things in common. We don't know each other that well yet. But one thing we know we have in common are both having been residents of the DMV area. I lived in Ruston, Virginia for about 2.5 years. Okay. I worked in Tyson's Corner.
All right.
And it was a great moment in my life as I was getting into the corporate world. My very first office job happened to be at a place called Beers and Cutler, which was one of the top 50 best places to work in Washington, D.C. Is an independently owned tax firm that was then acquired by Baker Tilly. But some of my favorite memories are around Ruston Town Center and in Tyson's Corner. So, Corey, share with us what makes Northern Virginia, Maryland, D.C. a great place to buy a home.
Well, first of all, Beers and Cutler. So just a little thing, how we are similar. I am a former CPA accountant. So I used to do audits and stuff for Resnick, Fetter & Silverman. That's who it used to be a long time ago. So I do know the firm that you are speaking of in Virginia there. So to answer your question, the DMV, as we call it, right, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, it's very diverse. We have obviously a lot of government here. Government used to be very stable job. Not so much in the last couple years, right? So landscape a little bit changed with that, but still, there's still a lot of government jobs here, a lot of government contractors. So a lot of high-paying jobs, a lot of job opportunity, a lot of job growth here in the DMV. So, you know, that what brings a lot of people here to the area. It's very diverse, you know. You can find a lot of diversity in all three of those areas. And obviously each of them have, you know, their pros and their cons to them, depending on what you like. But, you know, we're about 4 minutes from New York. You can get down to the Carolinas pretty quickly. You know, I like to go to Myrtle Beach. So go there. That's not really that quick, but, you know, it is warmer weather, warmer beaches, I should say.
Yeah, one wonderful thing I remember about the area, well, the seasons, first of all, are absolutely incredible. I grew up somewhere where it's just hot all the time. And you have 4 distinct seasons. And just, you know, especially in the fall, I mean, every tree's a different color.
Yeah.
These leaves stay on the trees. And then there's that one week where they all fall down.
Wow. Yeah, and if you have a big backyard, that could be a challenge unless you're paying somebody. When I got the big backyard, I did it for the first year, and then I had to hire it out. I'm not doing these leaves. But the other good thing about this time of year is the crabs. I don't know if you remember the Chesapeake Bay crabs. So we're known here in Maryland, on the Maryland side, and DC DMV as for our blue crabs.
Absolutely.
They take a little work to open, and I like the Alaskan crab legs, but it's more of a social atmosphere, which we do enjoy here.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was going to mention is the food. You know, one thing that's really amazing about that area is because of the government, so many people have moved to that area from all around the world. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people from other parts of the world have started restaurants. Mm-hmm. And so I've lived in a lot of different places. I don't know if I've lived anywhere where there was that much diversity in the authentic cuisine that
Yeah.
was available. One day we'd go to lunch getting Peruvian chicken, another we'd get Indian food, another we're ordering Thai, and these aren't chain restaurants. These are,
Yeah.
people coming
Quality
from all over the
high-end
world and
restaurants.
bringing their recipes with them, which is amazing.
Yeah. We get a lot of diversity, through the government and a lot of international ins and outs during political seasons when things change politically. Then people are coming in and out for that reason also.
Yeah. Well, share with me, Corey, take me back to the beginning of your real estate career and help me understand that moment when you stepped into this space and you said, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, sure. So, well, my story was I read the book. Well, I was an accountant, right? I was working in 9 to 5 corporate America, doing what everybody's probably parents, kind of told them to do, right? Go to college, get your education, go and get a good 9 to 5 job. So that's what I did. Got into accounting, got my CPA, but I always kind of realized I wanted to start my own business, right? So I told someone that, and they recommended a book to me. This was over 20 years ago. It was the book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. You probably heard of
Oh,
it.
yeah.
A lot of you
Yep.
listeners heard of it. So, the book.
Yeah.
You don't have to go get it, but, primarily it's about, and that the example of that book is, building your real estate business or, some other kind of business to invest, right? So, I told another friend about the book that I read. I said, I think I want to get into this real estate thing. And they told me, listen, I saw this commercial on TV that said you can go to Georgetown University for a free seminar, how to invest in real estate, right?
The price is right.
Yeah, I said, oh, yeah, that sounds awesome, right? It's free. Me and my brother at the time, we had our bachelor pad together. We had bought our own home at that time. And he's also an accountant, so we have similar mindsets. I said, hey, going to this free seminar, you want to go with me? He went with me, and that kind of opened up my mind to the real estate investing part of the business. It was a free seminar. Of course, they sold you in a $3,000, weekend package that's coming in a few weeks. Bought that, hired a coach, and then we just started actually doing it. And we started making money in that, and then that ultimately led to us quitting our jobs and opening up a real estate brokerage company, which is a whole nother story.
So how long?
That's how I got into the business.
When was that? How long have you been in real estate since that day?
We opened up the brokerage in 2005. So we probably were investing prior to that, building up mostly residential rental portfolio, probably for about maybe about 3 or 4 years prior to opening up the brokerage.
That was, if I'm going back, that was around the time that I was there. So had I not been renting, I may have met you 20 years earlier.
Yeah. If you saw the Georgetown free seminar, Russ Whitney was the program name at the time. I don't think he's around anymore, but yeah.
Well, I want to give some insight here for our audience who are real estate agents, especially those who are starting out, and so one of the great things about real estate is you don't have to have any experience. You don't have to have a relevant background. The barrier to entry is low.
Very low.
Right? But the downside, the other side of that coin is when you can get into something where you don't really know what you're doing. And so because you are your own boss, because you're making your own schedule, some real estate agents can struggle to build systems that help with consistency and help with scaling. Share a little bit about your experience building systems and the benefit that they've had in your business.
Yeah, so everything, kind of, it kind of aligns, that question kind of aligns with my just natural personality trait. If anyone has done DISC profiling, I am a DC. D is like a dominant driver type, like I like to get it done. But the C part is kind of the accounting part of me, where I like the details, I like systems, I like consistency. And people always ask me, like, what is your claim to fame? How have you been able to be successful in this business? And that's one of the main things that I share with them is, I am very consistent, right? I'm not very creative, right? You can imagine my background is an accountant, right? So,
The stereotypes are true.
graphics and stuff, that's not really me, but I'm really good with numbers, right? I'm really good with numbers. I'm really good with systematizing things and then following that system. So much of what I do is put together a system and then I just follow it. So, every day I'm getting in here roughly at the same time and I'm getting on the phone prospecting for 2 hours a day, right? When I get a lead, right? What do I do that when I talk to someone who's interested in buying or selling a home? What do I do with that, right? But they're not ready right now, like most people, right? So you got to have a system involved as to what is going to be the cadence to follow up with them. Okay. Even when you get into hiring, right? One of the things that, the people listening to this, who are starting business or have business, right? You have to leverage people, right?
Right.
But you got to train those people too. And it's best to have a system to train them on, right? Or else willy-nilly, and you're leading, you're kind of letting things possibly get messed up because they don't know what they're doing and they don't have a system to kind of follow. So, creating the right systems to align with kind of where you want to go. And listen, you're not going to have all the systems on day one. There's a lot of systems in any business that has to be put together, but you have to have some kind of framework. You can also make it better, right? If you're a real detail oriented person like me, right? You can get lost in the weeds. So in my particular business, people who are really detailed, a lot of them, they aren't successful because they get too detailed, right? They want everything to be, all the systems to be right in place at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Even sometimes I fall in that trap, but you can't make any money if you don't get started, right? You got to push the button at some point, right? And launch it, and you can always make it better over time. So I think that's one of the pitfalls a lot of owners make, especially if they're real detailed, right? They want everything to kind of fit in the box and kind of be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to massage it, right? Sometimes things, they don't work the way you planned it to work, and right, and you got to adjust accordingly.
I feel like, if I'm putting myself in that place too, that takes some of the intimidation away, as far as like getting started, just knowing it doesn't have to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
This is a process where you're going to continue to refine it over and over time as you learn, right? And there's definitely a truth about business of just getting started. I hear it from so many people because you can make the best plan ever, but when it's just in your head, when it's in a vacuum, when it's in a lab and it's not interacting out there with the real world, you don't really know how this business is going to work. You don't really know how you're going to have to pivot, right? You don't know how the market's going to react. And so if you get started quickly, then yeah, it might be a little chaotic at first. You might fall on your face a couple of times, but you're going to learn through experience and then be able to adjust those processes and put that system in place based on experience, right?
Yeah.
I do know that adapting to change is something that has been a key to your success. Share a moment in your career where you had to adapt.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many moments, but I'll try to keep it brief. So in this business, in the real estate business, right, even today, right, things are always changing, right? The market is always changing. And so you have to keep your ear to the ground to see where it's changing, kind of where it is going, right? Because, the scripts or the things that I say to buyers and sellers today is different than what I was saying to buyers and sellers when the market crashed in 2008, right?
Right.
Like the language changes, what people react to changes. So you always in this business, and this is where a lot of people in my industry fail too, right? They aren't able to pivot quickly. Okay. And sometimes that's easier said than kind of done, but you have to kind of see kind of where the market is going. Like right now, the big pivot I'm making, which I just made the decision to make probably in the last 30 days, is AI, right? I'm using AI in my business now, but interesting thing happened to me, John. In the last 30 days, I had 2 phone calls from people looking for someone to sell their home, and they called me up. And as always, I want to track, right? Tracking is important. I want to track,
Right.
How did they find me? I said, so, who do I have to thank for sending you to me? And they said, well, I just went on AI and searched good agents in this area that have a lot of Google reviews with 5 stars, and you were one of the names that came up.
Wow. Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. Now, I haven't been doing anything specifically to make myself AI searchable. I do stuff on social media. I do videos and stuff like that, but I hadn't really done anything with purpose. And then like 2 weeks later, another person called me. It was kind of the same thing. I asked them, how'd you find me? Oh, I did an AI search for realtors in the area, right? My name came up. So, getting that information, right? What do you do with that, right? You have to take action. You get this information in, and when you get that information, you need to take action. So what I did was, what I'm doing in the next 12 months is entrenching myself and to learn everything about being AI searchable. And guys, it's really easy. All you have to do is ask your AI how to be AI searchable.
That's right.
Hey, how can I make my Google business profile AI searchable? And then you just follow those steps, right? You have the plan right there. You have the system right there. All you have to do is implement it now. So the next 12 months, I'm implementing the AI searchable system. Okay. So
that's
you got to pivot. You got to see where the market is kind of going, because you don't have to pay necessarily to play on Google right now, right? You don't have to pay to be one of the top 3, right? You can do these activities for free, right? Mm-hmm. It does take time, right? It takes some time, but you can be recommended by AI, and people are really at least in my industry, that's where, people are starting to find their realtors. And a lot of agents, they aren't on it yet, right? So the ones who adopt first are the ones that are going to get the spoils.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point too about, like, even if you don't know exactly what to do, one of the great things about AI is it's a great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
I had a moment a while back where, starting a YouTube channel, and it's a lot of work to put in those descriptions.
Yeah.
And also, there's something to the descriptions to being optimized for the algorithm. And that algorithm changes all the time, right? Yeah. And so I talked to a friend, and I was like, hey, do you think I should do this? Do you think I should get my AI to update all my descriptions and set up to auto update them as the algorithm changes, right? Well, spoiler alert, I'm not the most technical savvy person in the world, I mean, I can set up a podcast and stuff, but like, I'm not coding or anything, right? I dove into it, and I just was asking my AI agent how to do it. Mm-hmm. Step-by-step process. There were times I was so lost. It was like, click this button next. I was like, I don't even see the button. I took a screen grab of the screen, uploaded it, and said, where's the button? It's in the top right corner. Idiot. No, it didn't say it. But you make a great point, and I really want to encourage people, once again, don't be intimidated. If you're not sure how to do this, you can ask. Hey, I'm starting a real estate business, and I need to build out a system to enable me to do XYZ. Write me a plan that I can follow that will do bop, 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 bop.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
And maybe it's not perfect, right? Because AI sometimes isn't perfect, but also, like you talked about earlier, Corey, we can adapt, we can try, we adjust, and we keep it moving. Yeah. Right?
I think it was Mike Tyson who said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right?
That's right.
And I want to piggyback off that is, once you get punched in the mouth, right, that plan might go away, but then you got to get back focused again, right? You got to come up with another plan, because the fight isn't over, right?
That's right.
You got to keep at it. You got to keep at
It's
it.
a
So
lifelong fight.
long,
That's right. Well, I'm
lifelong.
loving these insights, Corey. We're going to keep it moving, but first, let's hear a message from our sponsor, Sphere Rocket.
Business owners and entrepreneurs will place a proven executive assistant VA for just $4 to $8 an hour, and if they don't perform, you don't pay. Imagine freeing up 20 plus hours a week by someone handling your most time-consuming tasks like admin work, managing emails, scheduling meetings, and so much more. This one hire could transform your productivity and give you back the time you need to focus on growing your business. At Sphere Rocket VA, we make this possible in as little as 7 days. We'll place a proven executive assistant VA in your business for just $4 to $8 an hour, and your VA will take over day-to-day administrative tasks, help manage your email and calendar, follow up with past clients, giving you back 20 plus hours a week so you can increase your sales and even enjoy more personal time. And here's the best part. If they don't give you back 20 plus hours a week in the first month, you don't pay Sphere Rocket a dime. We've done this for thousands of business owners, and now it's your turn to see the results. Click the link around this video to schedule a demo and discover how this one hire can completely change how you run your business. Remember, if within 45 days the VA doesn't perform, you don't pay.
All right, we are here with Corey Lancaster, and he is sharing all sorts of insights for folks in the real estate industry. He is based in the DC, Maryland area, which is a beautiful place to live. Corey, you mentioned earlier in the episode that you are a CPA. And so a lot of people coming into real estate are coming from other industries, right? And so I think it's important to understand, hey, that past life is still valuable in this new world, right? There's a lot of numbers in real estate. I'm not a big numbers guy. And so I remember when I bought my first home, I was a little overwhelmed. Fortunately, I had a great agent. But, share with me, how has being a CPA helped you in your role as a real estate agent as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, for me, kind of knowing numbers is kind of one of the things I'm really strong at, right? Doing the net sheets, learning also the lender industry, because there's a lot of numbers in the lender industry, right? They give them a good faith estimate, breaks down all their costs, right? I kind of go over that. I can kind of review that, but probably more importantly, where it benefits me is just business wise, right? Running my business, knowing what my return on investments are, right? If I'm investing in this lead generation source and it's costing me X amount of dollars, what is that going to do to the bottom line, right? And is it worth investing? What's going to be the return on that, right? Putting together budgets, right? And also not just having the numbers, but knowing how to read them and understand them and what kind of adjustments you can kind of make. Like you said, a lot of people in my business, right, they come from a different field, and it's not that one is better than the other, right? It's just what you can use from that previous experience to make you successful. Like if you're a nurse, you're probably really compassionate. You probably have a lot of hand holding. So you may use that in your business when dealing with your clients. You might not be so good at numbers, but if you're not good at numbers, then maybe you have to outsource that, right?
Right.
So, whether you're going to get a virtual assistant or something of that nature, to help you with the numbers.
Right. That's very well said. Now, one thing I love to focus on is not always the successes, because, the people we have on this show are top performers. Success is kind of, we know you're successful, but a lot of times it's the failures in life that teach us the most important lessons. I'm curious, thinking back throughout your career, what was a moment where maybe it felt like a failure at the time? Maybe it was, but looking back now, that moment taught you one of the most important lessons of your career.
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest one where I felt probably my biggest low, or at least one of my biggest lows, right? You're always going to have some challenges, is when I left my nice, comfy accounting job to open up my brokerage, right? And run my brokerage.
Yeah.
Thinking, right, not really doing enough research, right? I was in my 20s at the time. I'm 50 today. And you know, I kind of had this idea, you know, build it and they will come, and not really doing enough research on the front end.
Yeah.
So had all of these expenses, right? Went out, got a lease, you know, for the building, put all this investment in it, and that was in 2005, and things were going okay for the first couple of years. We were building it, you know, we were young, and I say we because me and my brother business partners, and we were moving forward. And then what happened? The 2008 crash happened, right? And everything went down, and then you really start second guessing yourself, like, did I make the right decision? And had a nice, good, you know, decent paying accounting job career, and here I am, you know, the market's crashed, and you know, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to pay the rent. You know, I had an employee at the time too, right? So now that's extra stress, right? You got to pay them. You got to make sure they're getting paid. You don't want to have to lay off anybody. You know, so it was a very difficult position to kind of be in. But you know, when you go through those kind of struggles, you kind of find some inner strength in you. Hopefully, you do. The people who become successful, right? You find, okay, this is where I am. It's not in a good position, but what do I need to do to get out of it, and then put together a plan to get to start moving forward, right?
Yeah.
I'm a very faith-based person as well, so that guides a lot of my decision. But it is hard when you don't have that money coming in and you got the expenses piling up. That's where, again, you got to kind of pivot, right? What are the things I can, you know, cut, and I need to focus on revenue. So, like in that situation, everybody's getting foreclosed. It seems like losing their homes.
Mm-hmm.
Through the investment part of my history, being an investor, I knew about short sales. So I already had a little knowledge and a little leg up on a lot of realtors, because a lot of realtors didn't even know what a short sale was until the market crashed. So I said, well, I know what that is. I know how to, you know, I know a little bit about it. So I kind of focused on that, which ended up being like 80% of my business during those times. And it ended up being a blessing. You know, sometimes we kind of feel like, you know, some of the negative things that happen to us are just negative, but in looking back, it ended up being a blessing to me and my brother's firm, because, you know, when we opened up in the location we did, you know, all the major brands were around us. You know, the ones that you hear about, the Remax, the Coldwell Bankers, the Century 21s. You know, we were a new franchise just kind of coming in, right? So one by one, each of those brokerages start closing their doors, right? They had big offices. I had, you know, a decent sized office. You know, I had one employee at a time, but these were legacy brokerages, right? They had all the big rental space, all the employees, all the overhead, right? So as 2008 hit, 2009, each of them started slowly closing their doors, and which actually sent more agents to our brokerage and allowed us to grow, right? So sometimes we kind of think, hey, you know, this is a negative thing, but you know, you got to find out how to, like, what are the positive points? You know, how can you turn it around? And sometimes you may realize, like, that was a blessing, right? That was a blessing. And you know, us, again, me and my brother CPA too, us kind of knowing those numbers and knowing how to keep our expenses reasonable, you know, for that we don't really kind of get used to. But that was a pretty challenging time for a long time. It felt like forever.
Oh, tell me about it. Well, I think another you know, insight that I'm hearing from you on that too is also the benefit of being a small business, right? Like it's important to have a team, it's important to have systems, but when you are smaller, you're more nimble as well, right? And so you pointed it out, you know, during this time, like these big companies have so much overhead, and they've got massive buildings, they've got tons of employees, and so also, like, a lot of these companies, their first answer is, oh, let me just shed all this dead weight, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're keeping things a little tighter, hey, you know, maybe you need to slim down a little bit, but you're also able to pivot quicker to your earlier points, right? You're kind of the speedboat around the Titanics, if you will.
Yeah. And that was like one of the decision making one of the big decisions I made this past year or last year when I decided to sell my brokerage. We had about 85 agents that worked at my brokerage at the time, and it was a franchise. But in our industry, there's a lot of changes in the real estate industry. If you're watching this and you know what I mean, over the last 2-3 years, it's been a lot. It's been a lot of shifts. There's been a lot of lawsuits and stuff. And what I come to know, my franchise agreement was expiring, at the beginning of last year. So it's kind of, hey, do I want to renew or not? And kind of to your point is being able to maneuver quickly, which is really why I didn't go down the franchise route again. I ended up selling my brokerage to a large independent brokerage here in the DMV because, if when you're really big, it is harder to kind of pivot. And in our industry, things are moving so quickly. Being in my case now, I'm with a non-franchise. It is a big independent company, but they have the ability to pivot a lot quicker than like a franchise would. So I don't know if anybody's thinking about, buying a franchise or going as an independent or so forth. But that's one of the things, I would kind of leave with you is kind of like, kind of keep that in mind, right? You're a franchise, you're under certain restrictions, the heads up wherever they're located, right? They're thinking about all the different regions and what changes they can make and how quickly they can make those changes. And in today's real estate market, things moving so quickly, I thought it was best not to be either own a franchise or even be under a franchise just because of the pivot, being able to pivot quickly.
There you go, pivoting again in real time. Yeah. Well, I want to ask you one more question to get some more insights on your experience. You just mentioned it, selling your brokerage, right? And so there's going to be folks in our audience who are considering selling their brokerage, or maybe they're at the beginning or the middle of the process, and they're thinking, I'd love to learn from somebody who has done this before. What are some of the important things that you learned going through that process of selling your brokerage that you would recommend to the audience?
So what I did was I kind of put a list of, because I am still selling, right? I sold my brokerage, but I am still selling. I'm still in the real estate business. Me and my brother, we just run our own team, me and him pretty much. And we're kind of in the second phase of our careers, right? So we've done well last 20 years. We saved up money, we've invested, and now we're probably in our last 10 years if I want to retire. Right. But, you put together a list of, what do you want and what don't you want? And then you seek out the people who can meet that. This is what I want. So probably interviewed, I think it was maybe 5 different brokerages. All of them were non-franchises. Like I said, I didn't want, and also for my agents that were the ones that would come with me to the brokers. I didn't want to do the franchise, so I looked at large independent brokers because in my industry, I truly think that where it's going in as relates to the brokerages business, you either got to be really big, especially independents that can move quickly, right? They got a lot of money coming in. Or you got to be kind of like Ninja, right? Kind of small where you can pivot kind of quickly. Right. I think it's going to be hard for the middle of the road brokerages because you got to give so much to the agents, and with the inflation and how much stuff is costing is just expensive. Yeah. So the margins just get smaller and smaller. So you got to be either really big or kind of really small, I feel like. But, kind of know what your worth is. What I realized, and I kind of heard it in the past, but a lot of these larger brokerages, they are making their money in title industry and in the mortgage industry, mostly title, I think, because it's easier for them to manage. So what I realized is a lot of these big brokerages, they push their agents to the title company, which they own or have some interest in. And even though they're not making a lot of money on the brokerage, they're making a lot of money on title. So if you are able to get a JV, if they offer a JV type of situation, that might be good, something to negotiate with. Okay. Of course, it depends on what your numbers look like, individually or the people that you're bringing over, right? I would try to get that as high as you can before you start putting that out there, if you are able to, right? Because it's all based off of the numbers, who's going to come with you, how much transaction that they're doing. So it's all kind of based off the numbers.
And make sure you know your numbers, right?
So you know your number.
Takes me back to watching Shark Tank, which is one of my favorite shows. And, these sharks are, if an entrepreneur doesn't know their numbers, because these people are trying to get an investment or sell something, and they're like, you don't know your numbers? So that's probably another thing is, really dial in, get your numbers up, but also make sure, you have all your ducks in a row.
Make them look as good as possible. Legally, of course, legally. You don't want to lead.
That's right.
If you want to buy a big item, you might want to hold off on that. Don't want to put that on the P&L just yet, right? If you want to buy that car or something, right? Or either be able to explain it, right?
That's right. Well, speaking of buying big items, homes specifically, for those listening who are thinking, wow, Corey really knows his stuff, and I'm either already in the DMV area or I am moving to the nation's capital for one reason or another, how can folks get in touch with you, Corey, and your team to buy a home or sell a home?
The best thing is to do it the old-fashioned way. Give me a call. Just give me a call on my number. Is it okay to give the number out?
Please, yeah.
240-988-3173. Of course, you can text me as well. I'm a pretty personal guy. I like to talk. I do technology. I'm pretty up on technology too, but kind of a face-to-face, belly-to-belly kind of person. So just give me a phone call. If I don't pick up, leave me a message. I know there's certain generations that don't like leaving messages. But if you could leave a message, I do return all of my messages. My messages, I make sure they're never full. And I always reply to text messages and emails as well. You can email me at Corey, Corey, at thelancasterteam.com.
Fantastic. Well, Corey, I really appreciate you joining me today. I learned a lot. I know the audience learned a lot. Thank you for joining us today on the Leverage Podcast.
Thank you, John.